She revealed the shocking truth to the billionaire. "You won't believe what happened next." Laura's hands gripped the edge of the diner counter, rubbing the wood until it gleamed beneath the fluorescent lights. The hum of casual conversations filled the air, a familiar rhythm laced with laughter and clinking plates. Another day, another shift. But today felt suffocating. She glanced at the door, the midday sun casting shadows on the worn tiles. What was it going to take to push through this endless cycle? She was a single mother, a waitress, and she held the weight of her father's declining health on her shoulders. Then he walked in. Tall, with an air that hinted at fortune and ease, Jake Harrington captured the attention of everyone present. A billionaire. She scoffed internally, another outsider who wouldn't comprehend the grind of life in a small Texas town. Yet, the way his eyes scanned the diner, surprised yet intrigued, kept her pulse racing. She hurriedly wiped down a nearby table, fighting the irritation that rose within her. How could he even see the world they lived in? When the storm hit, it struck hard, the clouds darkening the sky in a sudden rush. Rain began pelting the windows, and the streets outside vanished beneath swirling water. Jake was trapped here, in her world now. With no customers left, the diner felt even smaller, the confined space amplifying the tension between them. "Do you always run your diner in a rainstorm, or is this just a special occasion?" Jake attempted to lighten the mood as he slid into a booth. A half-smile provoked a flicker of annoyance within her. "Not much choice when the world outside becomes a river," she replied, crossing her arms defensively. Though her words were curt, his probing gaze made her second-guess her instincts. There was something about him, a vulnerability she couldn't place, and it set off alarm bells within her, clashing with her pride. Yet, as the clouds rumbled and the din of thunder filled the room, their conversation shifted. Suddenly they were delving into ambitions and regrets. As she hesitantly opened up about her life, she saw through his polished exterior. He wasn't just a billionaire. He was seeking something more than wealth, something grounded. Just as the honesty began to seep between them, she caught herself. Was she about to confess too much? She had heard stories about the riches that twisted hearts, and yet here she was, tempted by his kindness. Before she could rein in her thoughts, a simple comment launched something deeper. "My mother. She had an old friend, Lily." The name dropped like a stone in water. Jake's expression shifted, eyes narrowing in recognition. "Lily." His voice was softer, almost reverent. "She was my mother." Shock washed over her. The room spun as memories crashed against her. Family dinners, laughter, and buried truths emerged like specters, a shared past that hinted at bonds and betrayals. "You're connected to her?" Anxiety buzzed in her veins. "Do you really think you can understand our struggles?" Before they could dissect this revelation, a gust of wind blew through the swinging door, rattling the windows and scattering bills across the floor. The storm outside whipped through the diner, swirling with chaos. What did he want from her? The air held an unbearable weight, forcing her to confront her fear of dependence on someone she thought she could never relate to. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Tension thickened again. They were at the edge of something monumental. Would she embrace this unexpected connection, or would she retreat back into the familiar, haunted by the ghosts of her upbringing? The questions loomed heavy in the air, unspoken and electrifying, leaving their fates hanging in a delicate balance. The storm continued to lash against the diner, an incessant reminder that the outside world was unpredictable, much like her own life. Laura felt Jake's presence enveloping her like a warm blanket amid the chaos. Yet in that warmth, doubt flickered. How long could she sustain this connection? Just as she prepared to push him away, a part of her was intrigued by the possibility of understanding and perhaps vulnerability. "What do you know about Lily?" she asked, her voice slightly muffled by the growing apprehension. The question slipped out, raw and candid. A pulse of fear tightened her throat. Where was this line of questioning going? Jake's gaze deepened, and for a moment, it felt as though he was retracing memories only he could access. She was a complicated woman, strong-willed. Sometimes, she hurt the people closest to her. I'm sure she made her share of mistakes, But she also helped a lot of people, including my family. As he spoke, his words resonated with truths Laura had feared to articulate, but lived daily. Helped? She struggled to control the tremble in her voice. The weight of memories shared and unshared crashed over her. What if he was right? What if reminiscing triggered elements of her own painful history? What if those mistakes defined more than just the past? His answer was measured. It's a choice, Laura, to be defined by the past or to rise above it. For the first time, she noticed the cracks in his facade, the depth of hurt behind his sophisticated appearance. Perhaps he carried burdens similar to her own. She steeled herself against the mountains of fear rising within her. Here sat a man who clearly had investments in the kind of life she fantasized about escaping. A billionaire with access to resources that her father once taught her to believe were only for the few. Suddenly, she felt the urge to share everything she had kept buried, but doubts surged. What difference could it really make? "Why are you here, in this diner, during this storm?" she asked, her tone shifting to something softer yet full of challenge. It took him a moment to respond, the weight of her question hanging heavily between them. "I needed to step away from everything. The board meetings, the constant pressure to perform. I guess I wanted to remember what it was like to feel small, to find a piece of realness again." His honesty forced her to examine her own feelings. Could she afford to embrace her vulnerability? The diner served as a metaphor for her life, a shelter from the storm, yet constraining. Every day was a relentless cycle, and she was tired of merely surviving in the safety of her familiar routines. "I understand how it feels to want to break free from expectation," said Laura, each word slathered with the weight of her own sacrifices. "But what if breaking free means letting go of everything you fought for?" Barely a breath had passed when he leaned forward, an intensity alighting in his eyes. "Maybe what we fight for isn't always what we need, Laura." The depth of his voice resonated with a challenge that struck a chord deep within her, rippling through the weak defenses she had erected over years. Trepidation spiraled within her. It was one thing to recognize the patterns. It was an entirely different challenge to confront them head-on. What would happen if she allowed herself to trust him, if she opened up her heart? That question coiled around her thoughts, relentless and desperate. "Are you ready to break free, Laura?" Jake's eyes bore into hers, a steady resolve battling her uncertainty. As lightning flashed through the windows, illuminating the diner for just a moment, Laura found herself at a pivotal junction. Would she seize this chance, or retreat into her solitary shadows? In that charged moment of silence, the door swung open again, whipping frigid air into the small space, and with it, new chaos loomed on the horizon. "Jake," Laura said, suddenly aware that the stakes were rising beyond their conversation. "We need to talk about our families, really talk." As she prepared to dive into her past, that fear morphed into determination. There was a path waiting for her, shrouded in uncertainty, but illuminated by shared discovery. Would they dismantle the ghosts that had haunted their families and define their future together? The tempest outside mirrored the maelstrom of emotions brewing within her. The moment had come, propelling them toward something they were both unprepared for, yet desperately needed. Heat coursed through her veins. She realized how close she was to confronting her reality. But at what cost? Would their families' histories bond, or fracture them? The thunder grumbled, and her heart raced, awaiting the truth that loomed dangerously close. The door slammed shut behind the new arrival, sending a ripple of cold air dancing around the diner. Laura's heart pounded in her chest, the cacophony of the storm outside mirroring her internal storm. It was time to reveal the truth she had harbored for too long. "Jake," she began, her voice gaining strength. "Our families are connected in ways I've avoided acknowledging." The words tumbled out, an avalanche of suppressed emotions surging to the surface. She took a steadying breath, the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. "My father. He had choices too, and those choices affected many lives, including yours." Jake leaned back, surprise flickering in his eyes. "What do you mean?" Fear twisted in her stomach, yet an unfamiliar determination pushed her forward. She had spent years hiding, but honesty felt like a lighthouse beckoning her through the fog. "My father was involved in some unethical business practices. It spiraled out of control, impacting your family in ways I can only begin to understand." The silence that followed was suffocating, yet Laura felt liberated by her confession. She could sense Jake grappling with her words, his mind racing through the implications. "How could you not tell me?" he finally asked, hurt flickering beneath his surprise. "I was afraid," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Afraid it would change everything, that I'd become just another chapter in that painful story." She watched his expression shift, and she braced herself. "You wanted me to think your life had been perfect?" His tone was sharper, but the hurt was palpable. "You thought I wouldn't understand how complicated family ties can be?" No, she had thought he'd never understand her burdens. "You're right," she admitted, regret lacing her sincerity. "I didn't think you'd want to get involved with the baggage I carry." The corners of his mouth tightened, emotion flickering in his carefully composed gaze. "And what about me?" His voice dipped lower, exposing vulnerability. "I have baggage too, Laura. We all do. But I'm here, choosing to confront mine." She sensed his walls softening, a shared understanding forming between them like strands weaving a new fabric of connection. "I can't change my father's decisions, Jake, but I can change how I respond to them, and I want to move forward with you, if you'll allow me." His eyes narrowed, searching through her resolve. "And what does that look like? Maybe it starts with honesty." In that moment, Laura felt something shift within her. She had spent too long running from her past, but standing amidst the storm with Jake felt like stepping into light. "I want to share everything, the good, the bad. I want to confront the shadows together." Jake's expression softened, and for the first time, a tentative smile broke through the weight of their conversation. "I think that's a good place to start." Yet as the tenuous thread of connection began to strengthen, an unexpected fear emerged. She was inviting him into her chaos, exposing herself in ways she had never dared before. Would he still want to forge a path with her, after learning the full extent of her history? The storm outside continued to batter the diner, but within, a fragile alliance was forming. As she held Jake's gaze, it became clear that the journey forward would demand both courage and vulnerability from them both. "Let me share my side," Laura initiated, her voice a mixture of apprehension and anticipation. Just as she prepared to delve deeper, the door swung open again, and with it came a gust of icy wind that seemed to usher in a new chapter, abrupt and unpredictable. Laura took a deep breath, knowing this was just the beginning. History was about to collide with the present in ways she could never anticipate. Could they truly face their shared legacy together, or would the ghosts of their family's past tear them apart? As her heart raced with uncertainty, she resolved to reveal her truth, a shared journey yet to unfold. Would her revelations bind them closer, or fracture their budding connection? The storm raged on, filling the diner with an anxious energy that threatened to explode. The moment of truth was dawning, and she was ready to face it. The diner buzzed with an electric tension as Laura's eyes settled on the new arrival. A tall, heavy-set man obscured the doorway momentarily, his silhouette framed by the relentless storm outside. She quickly turned back to Jake, whose face mirrored her own swirling emotions. They could not afford another distraction. "Laura," he said slowly, as if weighing every word, "you've just opened up a huge part of your life to me. But I need to understand. You can't just throw this at me and expect it to settle. What exactly happened?" His intensity grounded her, urging her to articulate the chaos she had navigated for years. "It started when I found out." She hesitated, confirming a rush of chaotic memories. "My father's business began to fail. I didn't know all the details, but there were whispers of corruption, shady deals. I was young, and it felt like our lives were dissolving in front of us." Jake leaned in, his gaze piercing through her mask of bravado. "And the impact on my family?" She felt the weight of the world pressing her deeper into the booth. "Your father. He lost everything. His business crumbled after my father's. There's so much I didn't know at the time. The pain my family inflicted ultimately led to your family's demise as well." As she confessed, Laura caught glimpses of disbelief flickering in Jake's eyes. The tight grip of her truth began to unspool, each word a rope binding her to a legacy of guilt. The weight of the moment sank deeper into her chest, and she was acutely aware of how fragile their connection was. Silence swallowed them, heavy with the ghosts of their pasts. Each heartbeat echoed the turmoil of their entwined histories. Just as she felt the crack forming in their burgeoning bond, Jake spoke, his voice steady but strained. "Whether you knew it or not, those choices shaped who I am today. I've struggled to shake off the significance of their decisions. But here's the thing, Laura. Your confession doesn't have to define us." She searched his face, desperate for reassurance. "What do you mean?" I'm saying we can choose to break this cycle, confront it instead of hiding from it. Together. His consistency surprised her, stoking a flicker of hope within her battered resolve. Something in her shifted as she contemplated his words, this possibility of transformation. Cautiously, she took a step further. So how do we do that? How do I stop feeling like my father's mistakes claim ownership over my life? Jake's eyes softened, recognition of the internal battle that raged within her. By owning your story, Laura. Accepting your past doesn't absolve anyone's sins, but it's the first step toward healing. Distance yourself from the choice he made and carve out your own path. His words ignited something deep inside her, a smoldering ember of tenacity, but doubt seeped back in like the cold draft from the door. What if I can't? What if the weight of it is too heavy? He reached across the table, anchoring her with his touch. That's why you let me in. We face these burdens together, lean on each other when the shadows creep in. We can make something new emerge from the ruins. For the first time, the oppressive past felt less suffocating. The storm rattled the diner's old windows, but with Jake's hand in hers, she felt courage rise to meet it. The conversation shifted as Jake shared shards of his own story, the moments he'd wrestled with shame over his family's failures, how he learned to process them. With each revelation, Laura felt the chains of her solitude loosen, replaced with the warmth of connection. They were crafting a new narrative, one grounded in authenticity. As they wrapped up their discussion, the dynamics between them shifted irrevocably. Yet, just as she felt a fragile bond solidifying, the door swung open once more, and in strode another newcomer, a familiar face that instantly put Laura on high alert. She turned to Jake, trepidation rising. Would this person shatter the small foundation they had begun to build? The next moment could either deepen their connection or threaten to unravel it all. As the door clicked shut behind the new arrival, Laura held her breath. The stakes had just soared higher. What would this encounter reveal about her past and her future? The newcomer's presence felt like a seismic shift in the stagnant air of the diner. Laura's heart raced as her eyes locked onto the familiar face, Mark, her high school classmate and a part of that tangled web of her father's legacy. His unexpected arrival drilled into her thoughts, unraveling the fragile thread of empowerment she had just begun to weave with Jake. Mark scanned the diner, then his gaze inevitably landed on her. His confident stride carried an air of authority, cultivated from years of privilege, and it made Laura's stomach twist. How had she imagined her past could be laid to rest when shadows like his lingered like unwanted apparitions? Laura? The surprise mixed with curiosity in his voice was jarring. I didn't expect to see you here. Mark. She managed to articulate his name, but her voice felt strangled. Jake moved slightly, subtly shifting his body to block Mark's view of Laura. It felt protective, but also possessive. Laura swallowed, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She didn't want old dynamics to take hold again, especially not now as she was clawing her way out of the darkness. You two know each other? Jake's voice cut through the tension. It was steady, his brow furrowed as he absorbed the unfolding situation. We were in the same class, Laura replied, sidestepping the emotional baggage her history with Mark carried. A slight grin crept across Mark's lips, a grin Laura remembered too well. It was the same smirk that had masked 1,000 jabs in high school. Still hanging around then, I see, he said, his tone light, but the underlying mockery was unmistakable. Don't you have somewhere else to be? Laura snapped back, the defensive edge of her voice surprising even herself. Since when had she felt confident enough to confront him? Jake eyed her, surprised yet impressed. You don't have to engage with him if you don't want to. No, I want to, Laura replied firmly. Each word felt empowering as she disentangled the threads of her past, room by room, anchor by anchor. I need to. Mark raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. You're standing up for yourself now? Who knew? The comment stung. The truth was, she had always played a passive role in the backdrop of her life's drama. Years spent pleasing others, appeasing the shadows of her father's mistakes, had conditioned her to conform. But Jake's reassurance had ignited a flicker over the ruins she deemed unredeemable. Yes, I am, she declared, the truth coursing through her veins. I'm carving out my own path, regardless of who you think you know. A flicker of realization crossed Mark's face, one that told her she had perhaps confronted the unsightly history they shared. It was a testament to her growth, but the fight wasn't over. The stakes had escalated, and she could feel her resolve metamorphose into something undeniable. "Well, look who we have here," Mark said, openly mocking. "Ms. Bigshot, I hope you know what you're getting into. We can't simply escape our past. It's written in stone." "Maybe you should stop clinging to yours, Mark," Jake interjected, his voice radiating with an assertiveness that surprised Laura. "Some of us are trying to rise above it." This time, it was Laura's turn to smile, feeling the support of someone beside her, echoing her dedication to forge ahead. In this moment, with Jake anchoring her self-assertion, she began to see the contours of a future that wasn't riddled with blame. As they prepared to leave the diner, the remnants of their conversation lingered in the air, unspoken tensions and whispered possibilities. Laura realized she had a new support network, and for the first time, she wanted to explore it. Mark's voice was barely a whisper as they exited. "Don't think you can outrun it, Laura. The past has a way of catching up." She turned to offer him a defiant look, her heart racing with uncertainty but also empowerment. "Maybe it's time I learned to run faster than it can." With one final glance at Jake, she felt a resolve building within her. They would not be derailed by shadows. She was ready to confront her past fully and own her story. But as they stepped into the downpour outside, Laura felt an unsettling quiver deep in her gut, dread tightening around her. There was more to confront than she anticipated. She had taken one small step forward, but the larger conflict loomed, threatening to surface in ways she'd never imagined. What would Mark reveal next, and how would it test their newfound strength? Laura stepped out into the rain, the droplets slapping against her face, mirroring the tumult inside her. The coolness of the downpour contrasted with the heat of confrontation she had just endured. Each step felt weighted, as if she carried remnants of her past, yet there was a flicker of determination growing within her. The power of her voice lingered in her mind, and she needed to cling to that newfound courage. "Are you okay?" Jake's voice broke her thoughts, gentle but firm. He held an umbrella over them, shielding her from the deluge, and she appreciated the gesture. With him beside her, the anxiety of the encounter diminished a fraction. "I think so," she responded, though the truth was muddled. This was just the beginning. She had stood her ground against Mark, but the shadows he represented still loomed large. Would he retaliate? What would be his next move? Jake glanced at her, studying her expression. "You handled that really well. I'm proud of you." Pride, an unfamiliar feeling as she seldom felt it for herself. It felt good, empowering, but lurking beneath was the dread. What if Mark was right? What if she couldn't escape her past? "No one's ever told me that before, you know," she admitted, the vulnerability spilling from her lips. The admission surprised her. Was she ready to lay bare the fears she kept locked away? "And no one knows you like I do," Jake replied softly, his eyes steady. "You're stronger than you think, Laura. There's more to you than you realize." The reassurance punctured her walls, revealing possibilities she had yet to explore. What was she capable of? She needed to tap deeper into her potential, beyond merely surviving the encounters with individuals like Mark. She sought to transform the pain into something constructive, perhaps even liberating. "Maybe I should apologize for being a little rash," she remarked, the storm above mirroring the tempest brewing inside. "What if I just made things worse?" "Rashness can be a good teacher," Jake replied thoughtfully. "Growth often comes from uncomfortable situations. It's crucial that you don't turn back now. Dive into that feeling and let it guide you." His words resonated. While she had spent years navigating the troubles of her family's legacy in silence, speaking up had brought her clarity. Could voicing her frustrations be a catalyst for change? Rather than avoid the storms that developed around her, perhaps it was time to embrace them and learn to dance in the rain. With a flash of inspiration, she forged a plan. Reconnecting with people from her past would help her better grasp who she was now. It wasn't about battling shadows, but integrating them into the tapestry of her life, acknowledging their role in shaping her resilience. "I want to reach out to others I grew up with," she finally voiced, excitement bubbling up in her chest. "Maybe they can offer perspectives I've yet to consider. People who face challenges different from mine but not dissimilar enough." Jake nodded encouragingly, and she felt a wave of motivation sweep through her. The road ahead would be challenging, but she wouldn't travel it alone. "Is there anyone in particular you want to reconnect with?" "Actually, I've been thinking about Sophia," Laura said, recalling her old friend who had been her confidant in high school. "We lost touch after graduation. She had a unique outlook on life, always seemed unaffected by the chaos surrounding us." "Sounds like a great starting point," Jake replied, glancing at the gathering clouds. But remember, reaching out means opening yourself to vulnerability. It can be overwhelming. I'm ready for that. The certainty in her voice surprised even her. Vulnerability had never been a comfortable space, yet it held promise. Each brave step into that unknown territory felt like a thread connecting her closer to who she aspired to be. As they continued walking, a soft tension built within her, a sense of impending discovery. Reconciling her past would require courage, but it felt like the right direction. She couldn't outrun her history, but she could own it. But just as determination flooded her thoughts, her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. It was an email notification from an unknown sender. As she glanced at the screen, her heart skipped a beat. The subject line read, "You'll want to see this. Evidence you can't ignore." Instinct told her to tread carefully, as an unsettling realization settled in. Could this be the harbinger of another storm? The kind she would need to confront face on? She exchanged a nervous glance with Jake, who was already studying her perplexed expression. All at once, the urgency surged through her veins. The battle was far from over, and something more awaited her, hiding just beyond the horizon. Laura stood still, her heart racing as she stared at her phone. The rain continued to pour relentlessly around them, but now it felt distant, muffled by the pounding in her chest. The uncertainty of the unseen evidence loomed larger than anything she had faced with Mark. What could someone have discovered? Jake leaned closer, his brow furrowing in concern. What does it say? She swallowed hard, torn between fear and an exhilarating sense of empowerment. Her fingers hesitated over the screen, trembling with a mixture of dread and curiosity. Each minute felt like an eternity. Finally, with a deep breath, she opened the email. Words flashed before her eyes, but all that registered were the key phrases that jumped out. Documents, hidden transactions, your family. The implication sent a shiver down her spine. She had never wanted to dive too deeply into her family's business, fearing the murky waters. Yet now it seemed the past was demanding her attention in a way she couldn't ignore. Jake's voice broke through the haze. "Laura, you all right?" I don't know," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. The wheels in her mind began to turn. What if this was her chance to take control, to finally make sense of the chaos that had plagued her family? "Just read it. You can handle this," Jake urged, a steady hand resting on her shoulder, grounding her amidst the storm. With a shaky finger, she scrolled down. As she began absorbing the contents of the message, clarity emerged among the chaos. There was mention of a rival firm, shady dealings, and her family's entanglement in activities that felt darker than mere business competition. She read about sacrifices made under pressure, compromises that left her feeling sick to her stomach. Her pulse quickened, resonating with the cogs of a greater plan. This evidence could be the leverage she needed against Mark, but it would also expose her family's vulnerabilities. What did that mean for her? Would confronting the past burn bridges, or could it light the way to freedom? "I need to respond," she said, a newfound determination weaving its way through her uncertainty. With her head lifted, she felt a shift within her, a burgeoning sense of agency. "I can't let this go unchecked." "Be careful, Laura. It might escalate things with Mark," Jake cautioned, but his voice was laced with a hint of admiration. He understood. This was the moment she had been waiting for. "I know," she acknowledged. "But if they're using this against me, I have to take the risk. I can't be afraid of my own family's past anymore." As she composed a response, her fingers flew across the keyboard with unexpected confidence. Each word was a step into her future, an assertion of her intent to reclaim her narrative and dismantle the shadows that had burdened her. Yet just as she hit send, a strangling sense of foreboding gripped her. Was she ready for the fallout? The mysteries lurking under the surface of her family's past began to unravel in her mind, each thread representing a connection, some promising, others treacherous. The storm she sensed brewing was not simply from Mark. It was from the awakening knowledge of her lineage, a dual-edged sword. "Laura, what's next?" Jake asked, still focused on her. "I need to gather more information. I can't confront him without all the facts," she replied, the growth she had longed for embracing her fully. "I also need to reconnect with Sophia. She might know something I don't, about both the old and new." "Do you think she'll understand?" Jake asked, the concern dripping from his words as he noticed how far Laura was willing to go. "I have to believe she will," she said resolutely. "This is bigger than me. If I can harness my past, I can face Mark on my own terms." As they made their way back to the car, She felt the weight of the world on her shoulders, but a flicker of hope sparked in her heart. She was no longer just reacting, she was acting with purpose. But as they reached the vehicle, her phone buzzed again. This time, the notification chimed ominously, an incoming call from an unknown number. With a glance at Jake, she felt the shadows closing in once more, her resolve both tested and enhanced as she instinctively answered. "Hello?" "Laura, you need to listen carefully," a mysterious voice on the other end blurted out, their tone urgent. "Things are about to change, and you have no idea how deep this goes." In that moment, Laura knew she was stepping onto a path filled with unexpected twists, and she braced for whatever storm lay ahead. The voice on the other end crackled, weighing heavily in the charged silence. "You're in danger. I've seen the files, and I have information about your family you won't find in any public record." Laura's grip tightened on her phone. "Who is this?" she demanded, her heart hammering. Yet curiosity flared within her, feeding the tentative fire of resolve she had kindled moments before. "Someone who knows the truth," the voice replied, low and urgent. "Your family is entangled in something far worse than you realize. I've been watching your family's moves for years. Mark is only the beginning." A chill raced through her. Mark, her estranged partner, had always woven his charm with threads of deceit. "Why should I trust you?" she questioned, an instinctual wariness creeping into her tone. Silence. Then the voice responded, frustration lacing their words. "You have no idea what you're dealing with. If you want to protect yourself and your future, I can help, but time is running out." She hesitated, weighing her options. She could hang up and reassert her control, dismissing the unknown threat. But this voice was offering information, if true, leverage she desperately needed. "Where do we meet?" she asked, the urgency of the moment sharpening her focus. "Meet me at the cafe on 5th and Elm. An hour," the voice instructed, before disconnecting abruptly. As she and Jake climbed into the car, Laura felt a whirl of emotions churning inside her. This was not her typical modus operandi, meeting a total stranger fueled by desperation and intrigue. But the prospect of finding answers, of uncovering the layers of her family's hidden dealings, was tantalizing, a promise of clarity nestled in the chaos. "What was that about?" Jake asked, concern marking his features. "It's about my family. Someone claims they have information. I need to go." "Laura, this could be dangerous," he warned, but there was an undeniable edge of admiration in his voice. "You're ready to take this head-on?" "Yes," she replied, her voice firmer now. "It's time I faced everything. I can't let Mark keep using our past against me." As they drove towards the cafe, the steady rhythm of the raindrops on the windshield mirrored her racing thoughts. This was not just a meeting, it was a leap. She was stepping into the unknown, and every instinct urged caution, but she felt a strange exhilaration in her decision. Upon arriving, she spotted the cafe, its inviting atmosphere draped in the familiar aroma of brewing coffee and baked goods, almost mocking her tension. She scanned the area, keenly aware of her surroundings, her heart thrumming with both apprehension and anticipation. In an isolated corner, she saw a figure dressed in a dark jacket. A man, with an air of secrecy pulling at the corners of his expression. He appeared nervous, glancing around as if ensuring he was not being watched. She approached with purpose, aware that she was stepping irrevocably into dangerous waters. "You're the one I spoke to?" The man nodded, urgency flashing in his eyes. "Thank you for coming. There are things we need to discuss, things that will change everything for you and your family." She settled into the chair opposite him, her heart racing. "What do you know?" He leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "You may want to reconsider who you can trust, even among those closest to you. What I reveal will challenge everything you thought was true." Laura felt the weight of the words settle heavily in the air between them. The tension coiled tightly in her chest. Could this revelation really hold the key to her liberation, or plunge her deeper into the labyrinth of betrayal? Doubt clenched at her, but as she stared into the man's earnest eyes, she understood the importance of this moment. "I'm ready to know the truth," she asserted, resolve infusing her voice. Just as he began to unfold a secret laden with peril, her phone buzzed violently on the table. Her heart dropped. A text from Mark. "Where are you? Come home. We need to talk. Now." The looming confrontation demanded her immediate attention, even as the mystery in front of her threatened to unravel everything she believed. Laura's path had diverged, choices spiraling before her. Would she confront Mark, or pursue the deeper secrets at hand. The weight of suspension sat heavily on her chest as her instincts screamed for her to choose wisely. The cafe hummed around Laura, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing within her. She weighed the implications of Mark's message. The urgency felt palpable. Every instinct told her to confront him, face the past and all its angry shadows. Yet the voice of the man across from her offered a glimmer of hope, cloaked in chaos. "Listen, we don't have much time," the man urged, his voice coated in desperation. "Mark is tangled up in something dangerous. He's not who you remember." Laura arched an eyebrow at the accusation, a mix of anger and confusion roiling within her. Just as she was ready to dismiss the stranger's claims, a vivid memory flashed in her mind. Mark's easy laughter and the way he had twisted reality to keep her by his side. Could it be possible that the charming facade masked a darker truth? "Why should I believe you?" she questioned again, this time feeling the weight of her own vulnerability. The man leaned back, sensing her skepticism. "Because I have proof," he stated, producing a sleek tablet from his bag. With deft fingers, he flicked through files until an image flashed across the screen. Mark, shaking hands with a figure she recognized as a notorious traitor known for his illegal dealings. Her breath caught in her throat. "This is just a photograph," she managed, attempting to shield her mounting dread. "Yes, but follow the trail. After this meeting, your life will never be the same again. You deserve to see the truth," he replied firmly. Another buzz from her phone broke the moment. "Laura, I'm leaving now. Don't make me come find you." Mark's words dripped with a tone she had known too well. Threatening, possessive, a warning wrapped in affection. "Do you really think he could hurt you?" the man asked, almost reading her thoughts. Laura paused, the sting of reality pressing against her. "He can't control me anymore. I won't let him." The confidence in her voice reminded her of the person she used to be, a woman fighting for agency in a world that sought to restrict her. It dawned on her that this meeting, this choice to confront her family's secrets head-on, was another step toward reclaiming her power. "I need to know everything you have," she asserted, determined to dismantle the secrets before they consumed her whole. "Good," he nodded, visibly relieved. "There's something else, something you must understand. Mark doesn't act alone. This runs deeper, a network of corruption." As he laid out a web of deceit, she felt her world begin to fracture. Each revelation pried at the bonds of her past, revealing the harsh reality that everyone she trusted could be wrapped in shadows. She struggled to contain her growing fear. The thought of stepping out into the world where everyone could be a potential enemy was disorienting. "Stay strong, Laura. You're not alone in this," he said, trying to lend her strength. But internally she wrestled with the fear of stepping into the unfamiliar. Would her pursuit of the truth expose her to an insidious world, and to Mark himself? The balance between courage and recklessness unspooled with every new revelation. She gathered her breath, knowing that whatever choice she made next would define the path ahead. "I'll need a plan," she muttered, feeling the thrum of purpose surging within her. The urgency was palpable. She split her attention between the man's revelations and the overflow of messages piling up on her phone, each one from Mark, revealing his growing irritation. "Meet me in person," demanded a final text. Something in his tone triggered a sense of urgency. "Laura, you should go home," the man said carefully, prodding her thoughts. "You need to confront him before this spirals out of control." Her instincts screamed against it. The conflict of heart and mind had become unbearable. Could she face him now, armed with the knowledge that may shatter their fragile past? "Go home, or risk losing everything you've worked for." His words echoed ominously in her mind. Time seemed to stall, and with each tick, Laura wrestled with her next move. She was on the precipice, her choice teetering between retreat into the safety of the familiar and the audacious step into the unknown. Could she truly navigate the thin line between the dual threats of unraveling her past and protecting herself now? As she grappled with her impending decision, realization dawned. The moment Mark opened that door, there would be no turning back. Would she stand her ground against Mark and his threats, or would she follow the path revealing the inertia of the truth? The tension built to a breaking point, the precarious balance teetering precariously between confrontation and revelation. "How far are you willing to go to confront Mark?" The man laid the ultimatum before her, compelling, encouraging. Laura's heart raced. She had to decide. Would she walk away from everything she thought true, or plunge into the eye of the storm, seeking the clarity she yearned for. The clock ticked on. She felt the oppressive weight of anticipation settle heavily around her shoulders as her future hung in the balance. Laura's mind buzzed with the urgency of the moment. The cafe felt both familiar and alien, an in-between world encapsulating her battle for agency and truth. Each revelation from the man across from her, along with the growing tension from Mark's messages, drew her further into a labyrinth of choices. "Go home," the man urged again, the weight of his message penetrating her thoughts. "This could escalate into something you're not prepared for unless you confront him first. Time is running out." She stared at the screen of her phone, the messages from Mark lighting up in succession, each one more demanding than the last. Her heart raced. If she ran back to Mark now, would she once again slip back into the shadows of her fear? Or could she muster the courage that had surfaced like a fragile flame after years of being buried? "I need to know everything about my family and the world Mark has pulled me into. But I won't hide anymore," Laura asserted, her voice firm. The stranger looked impressed, a flicker of respect igniting his eyes. "Then confront him. But remember, he may not be alone. There's a network of people involved in this. Choose your words wisely." Gathering her resolve, she nodded and pushed back from the table. "I appreciate your help. I have to figure this out on my own terms, but your information might just help me understand the full story. Thank you for believing in me." "Stay strong. You might be closer to answers than you think," he replied, slipping the tablet back into his bag. Taking a deep breath, Laura strode out of the cafe with purpose. The storm had settled slightly, but the clouds still loomed overhead, a reflection of her own inner turmoil. She felt somewhat empowered, ready to confront not only Mark but also the realities of her past. There was no turning back now. As she got into her car, the engine roared to life, reflecting the surge of energy coursing through her. With Jake's support behind her, she felt an unusual steadiness enveloping her. This was her moment, the intersection of confronting her past while reclaiming her future. Upon arriving back at her childhood home, everything seemed different, and yet the same. Memories flooded her mind, the echoes of laughter and fights reverberating through the walls. They were reminders of both her struggles and joys, the fragments that had shaped her identity. Stepping inside, she felt the air heavy with tension. Mark was waiting for her, his demeanor brooding as he paced the room. "Where have you been? You've been neglecting my calls." "I've been figuring things out, Mark. Things we need to discuss," she replied, her voice steady, yet laced with determination. Mark stopped, studying her as if weighing his next move. "Is this about the past again? You need to let it go." "No, I need to face it. I have to confront the truth surrounding our families," she declared, standing tall against the walls that had once felt like a prison. Mark tried to laugh it off, but failure flashed across his face. "The past can't help you, Laura. It will only weigh you down." But his words no longer held power over her. They no longer cast shadows on her journey toward healing. "Actually, I've learned it's about time I took ownership of my story, my family's story. I know about the connections, the business deals, and the corruption. I've learned what we buried under shame," she asserted, the adrenaline building within her. The tension escalated, and Laura saw Mark's facade cracking as he attempted to redirect the conversation. "You're being emotional. This isn't helpful." "Being emotional is not a weakness. I'm finally ready to stand for my truth, Mark." With every word, she felt the weight of her past loosening its grip. A sudden silence enveloped them. She could feel the walls pressing in tighter, but deep down, she was stronger, emboldened by her revelations and fortified by new connections. Mark shifted, trying to regain control. "You don't understand how powerful the people involved in this are. You could be in danger." "Or," she countered, her conviction firm, "I could finally take charge and liberate myself from this tangle of deceit." As Mark's simmering anger spilled into the room, Laura realized this was not just a confrontation. This was the manifestation of her growth, a necessary clash where both past and present collided. They stood on the precipice of transformation, an opportunity for Laura to embrace her agency fully and redefine her path. "I've been afraid for too long," she continued, "but you don't control me anymore, and neither does my past. It's time I learned to run faster than it." The confidence surged within her, radiating into the room. Mark squared his shoulders, visibly struggling with her resolve. "You think you can just walk away?" "Yes," she replied, her voice unwavering. "And I have a plan. I'm reaching out to people from my past, people who might help me untangle the truth. I won't be manipulated by you or anyone else any longer." The silence was thick, both of them realizing the fracture in their relationship was stark and irrevocable. As he fumed, she pressed further. "I'm done carrying your baggage. The ghosts of our family's past don't dictate my future anymore." Amidst the tension, she felt light. Each word unspooled years of confusion and anxiety she had carried alone. Meeting the man at the cafe had lit a spark. Confronting not just Mark, but choosing to confront the entirety of her family's legacy offered her hope. "You'll regret this," Mark warned, but his threat felt hollow against her newfound strength. "Perhaps," she replied with unwavering resolve, "but I'm choosing my path now. Not out of fear, but out of power." With that, she stepped back, breathing in the freedom of speaking her truth. The door to her past no longer felt intimidating. It felt liberating. In that moment, she shattered the cycle of fear and dependence, embracing the strength she had concealed for so long. "Mark, I hope you find a way to confront your past too, but it won't be with me." With a final glance that mirrored her fortitude, she turned and walked away, leaving behind the shadows, both of him and of her past. She was ready to face the truth and carve her own way forward. Laura stepped out into the rain with renewed conviction. Today, she achieved a pivotal personal milestone, no longer weighed down by expectation or manipulation. She was determined to gather her strength and move toward reconciliation, healing, and perhaps even liberation. Her commitment to embracing the past and seizing her story wasn't just a declaration, it was the dawn of authentic transformation. And in this moment of personal empowerment, she vowed she wouldn't tread lightly into the future. She would stride confidently onward, facing whatever storms lay ahead. Laura was ready. Now, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.